Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. Now, before I talk about the actual video topic today, which is the Musashi and of course comparisons to the Missouri in terms of the strengths, weaknesses, is which one the better tier 9 free XP ship, etc. First things first, if you want to enter for a chance at a CC crate, post a comment in the comment section below. And I'll use a comment picker and I'll just pick one. As for the last video, which is the one where I talked about the CC crates and stuff like that, that video, even though I didn't actually say I was going to pick a winner from that video, I had like 700 comments. So I guess a lot of people just sort of assumed that, they posted a comment, there'd be a chance. So I'll just pick one for that video and one for this one. And of course, it is sort of the end of May right now. So I'm assuming that by the time that June rolls around, probably have another set of crates and codes and stuff like that to give away. So if you're interested in entering for a crate code, leave a comment in the comment section below. Of course, if it can be an actual conversationally productive comment, that would be ideal, but the usual, hey, I'm entering for a code, that works too. Alright, so let's move into our topic of discussion today. Musashi versus Missouri. Now, of course, when the ship first came out, and there's a little bit of a backstory here, when Musashi first came out, there was a bit of controversy at the time, because when Missouri first came out as a free XP ship, she was labeled as being permanently available. And of course, then Musashi came out and Missouri went away, and there was a controversy there, people were not happy about it. I really think that when it comes to these free XP ships, I personally think they should just stay permanently. Like, when a new one comes, fantastic. Give people a choice. Don't just take things away from them, right? Now, this also led people to, because of a ship being taken away, people to say, hey, the last ship was better than this one. It's a better ship, etc., etc., etc. And I would say, in certain situations, Missouri is the better ship. And in other situations, Musashi is also clearly better. And a lot of this sort of which is the better ship has more to do with individual styles of play, individual experiences in game with the various ships. If you really want to think about what Musashi is, and then also think about what Missouri is, Musashi is essentially a tier 10 Yamato being put down at tier 9, with major differences being the Musashi has crappier secondaries, sachet, and it's got 1.8 Sigma versus 2.1 Sigma on the Yamato. While on the other hand, Missouri is fundamentally a tier 9 battleship that's got radar. Now make no mistake, the Missouri is a very, very capable ship, and she has things that work fundamentally very well for certain people's playstyles, right? She's got higher speed, allowing you to get to places faster. She has got guns that are pretty darn accurate right now, especially because the US battleships at tier 9-10 have that reduction in dispersion module. They have that going for them. And of course, the radar provides a certain degree of utility as a battleship, right? You're not just something that can engage cruisers and try to hit battleships on the sides. You can now act as sort of a support ship as well for your own team. Hit that radar at the right times and the enemy destroyers are going to have a bad day. Missouri also has the wonderful AA package. She's able to really knock down some planes, and that is going to make enemy CV lives kind of difficult, because hey, if you're got sort of friendly ships in your AA bubble, enemy CV's gotta go try to look for some new targets. Musashi doesn't have these positive traits, right? She's not fast enough compared to Missouri, only goes 27 knots. She doesn't have an AA package really to speak of, and really if you run into CV games, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, where's the nearest Iowa/Missouri that can become my friend? You also don't have that utility in terms of having like a radar or anything like that. So Musashi definitely has notable disadvantages. However, she also has strengths that the Missouri can only really dream about. She's got 460mm guns, right? This is a gun caliber that only two ships in the game have, Musashi and Yamato, and allows these two ships to basically not give a damn about 32mm bow armor. So against other battleships that are trying very, very hard to bow tank or to angle in that kind of way, doesn't matter to Musashi and Yamato, right? So she's got that going for her. She also does have the bulk. She's a very, very hard to sort of dislodge battleship. If she's trying to hold the position down, it is a struggle to get Musashi out of the way. When you compare that to Missouri, Missouri is easier to take down. Missouri has less HP, and Missouri also has a 32mm bow with a 38mm center section. Musashi has, yes, a 32mm bow, which is vulnerable to cruiser high explosive, but then she's got a 50mm piece and a 57mm piece covering most of the deck area. And the 57mm piece provides you protection against, the German cruisers with their quarter pen. And so if you're running up against like Hindenburgs or Runes, for example, the Musashi is going to be a lot more durable in those situations compared to the Missouri. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, having that bigger HP pool is going to keep the ship around in a fight longer. There's also one other thing that is very, very interesting to talk about, and that mostly has to do with the thickness of the belt armor. Now, for those of you who've watched videos where I've talked about penetration and belt armor before, in most cases in World of Warships, you are really very dependent on the auto bounce mechanic in order to keep yourself safe. However, there are circumstances where having thick belt armor is very, very good. So, for example, let's say you're playing the Musashi. You've got 410mm of main belt armor, right, which is quite a bit more than the 307mm that's available on the Missouri. Now, let's say you were to encounter an Alsace, and let's say the Alsace catches you in not the best of positions, and you're maybe a little bit, outside of that auto bounce range. Let's say you are, somewhat angled, but you're not entering the auto bounce territory yet, right? 45 degrees and less kind of amount of angling. And let's say it's between, 10 and 11 kilometers. So you're playing your game and the Alsace shows up and it's in that distance. Now, if you were in a Missouri, you're in some serious trouble because the Alsace at that distance is going to have 590 something, so anywhere between 570 to about 590mm of penetration. If you were in a Missouri and you were at that distance, well, your belt armor is only about 430 some odd millimeters effective armor, right? Because you are at least angled at 45 some odd degrees. Well, if you're playing a Musashi, this is where things get really interesting, because at that distance, even at 45 degrees, where you have 0% chance of auto bounce, your belt armor is going to be somewhere in that 580 mil effective armor range. Very, very significant number, because if the Alsace were to shoot at you, you might actually just have a chance of just shattering the armor-piercing shells. Having that thicker belt armor has just made a huge world of difference. So, typically speaking, if you are playing Musashi, at times you can be just a little bit less careful, let's say, with your angling. If you're at a, sort of, let's say, in excess of 10 kilometers. By the way, generally speaking with Musashi, you're not going to be that close, right? Typically going to be a little bit further out. And that belt armor can become quite significant at that range. There's actually going to be a demonstration of this. You should see in a little bit, and I was going to take a shot at me. And there's going to be 3 batches of shells. The second batch of 3 shells that comes, one of them is going to hit an overpen on me. But the other one, at least one of those, is going to hit my main belt armor. But at the distance the Iowa was shooting at me and the angle that I was at, the Iowa's guns didn't have enough penetration, because about 18 point something kilometers, Iowa's penetration is about 500 and something. And my effective belt armor at that kind of distance is quite a bit more. So, as you can tell, Iowa took a shot at me, and even though I was not into all the bounce territory, didn't really mind, right? The armor did its job. And this is why at times, Musashi's armor is quite the advantage over Missouri's. And it does give her at times an edge in certain engagements. Still, all in all, I think the 2 battleships, they each have their own individual strengths. And there's not sort of like the outright, this is a better ship than the other. There are definitely situations where I would say, oh god, I wish I had a radar or better AA or more speed or whatnot. And then there are times where, if I'm playing the Missouri, I would be like, man, I really wish I had Musashi's guns right now, right? Because you're dealing with maybe an enemy team that's being kind of difficult. Maybe a lot of them are just in those bow-on tanking positions, and it's pretty much, hey, you gotta sling HE now if you want to do anything. And HE, while it can do damage and it can set fires and things like that, especially these days, with the fact that we have like fire prevention skills and all that, against battleships, maybe not the most efficient thing. And so sometimes to dislodge a battleship with a Missouri, not the easiest thing to do in the world. With Musashi, you pretty much sometimes just go, I don't care about your 32mm bow. I will hit you, and I will hurt you, and I will make you regret your life decisions. Something that you just can't do if you were in the Missouri. So both ships have advantages and disadvantages. So for those of you out there who've asked me, hey, which is the better ship? I would probably just tell you right now that they're both really darn good ships, and they both play their own roles really, really well. However, your mileage with the ship will potentially vary, because a lot of it depends on your personal playstyle, your personal philosophy. And if you happen to not like the Yamato style of play, right, which at times is rather static, which is at times rather more sort of a position hold, if you don't like that because you're someone who has to be in a ship that maneuvers out in the open ocean area, can move to different places quickly, then if I put you in a Musashi, you are absolutely gonna not like the ship. And you would definitely prefer the Missouri more, right? But on the other hand, if you're someone who doesn't mind this kind of role, then you might find a lot of mileage in the Musashi, where if I flip it and say, here's a Missouri, and you might not be as comfortable. Do you kind of see what I'm getting at here? These ships have their own individual strengths, and if your playstyle matches the strengths, you're going to have a really good time. If your playstyle doesn't really match, then hell, it's just not going to work for you. Anyways, if you're asking me for, let's say, my opinion, like would I recommend the Musashi? Yeah, absolutely. I think the ship at tier 9 is incredibly strong, because really she is a tier 9.75 battleship, essentially, if you want to think about it, at a tier 9 level. If you get into a match where you're top tier, you really do become a bully. Your only real enemy, shall we say, battleship that can really, really hurt you when you're angling is gonna be another Musashi. Other than that, not many things down at tier 9 and tier 8 and 7, because that's kind of the battle tiers you can run into, is really going to scare you. And hell, even if you get placed into tier 10 games, your firepower is perfectly capable of engaging other tier 10 battleships. There is, of course, one thing about the Musashi that I'm not really a fan of, is the fact that the Missouri seems to earn credits better, and the Musashi doesn't. And yes, while I'm still, credit positive every single time I play Musashi, typically earning about, 250 to about 300,000, maybe sometimes a little bit more credits per game, this is a bit of a far cry from what you can earn with Missouri. And like I said, I really wish Wargaming had simply offered both ships at the same time and simply given people the option to choose, because, then you would have had some decisions to make. Do you want a better credit earning ship with better utility and a little bit more flexibility, or do you want an absolute brute of a battleship that's, not as great in the credit earning department, but even in tier 10 battles, you're not going to feel out of place at all, right? You're going to have that firepower to scare people, and you have the armor to really shrug off a lot of hits, and make that a choice, instead of taking that choice away and really sort of forcing it. Even though Musashi is a very, very good ship, make no mistake about it, it's not like they replaced the Missouri with a complete piece of garbage. They did replace her with a very, very good ship. I just wish there was, that choice still given to the players, right? I mean, the free XP amount doesn't change. It's still 750k free experience, which is still a lot, but at least give players a decision, right? So they can say, hey, you know what, I'll prefer this over that. Why not? And I would say that would be my only major complaint about the way Wargaming handled the Musashi. Everything else about the ship, they really got right. Like, they gave her some disadvantages, and they gave her substantial advantages as well. She's a very, very good ship. Anyways, what do you guys think? For those of you out there who've played the Musashi, played the Missouri, which one do you like better? Which one do you think fits your style more? Is there times where you really wish you had one over the other? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Of course, for me, this battle I think is almost about over here. I think I'm going to tag this Tago here. There we go, 15,000 more damage. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the battle. We are really, really close to winning. I'm pretty sure it's the destroyer over there with a really low HP that's going to get tagged and killed off, and we are going to win the game. So let's take a look at the results screen. 438,405 credits, obviously not reaching the level of the Missouri. Like I said, this is one of the things that the Musashi doesn't do well, right? But in terms of experience, 6,010, 301 free experience, 162,000 damage, only 2 Citadel hits. A lot of the damage is going to be coming from getting those penetrations against those battle-on battleships, right? Base experience was not great in this one, only 1583. That's all right. You know, a win's a win. And if you take a look at the damage totals, look at the damage against those enemy battleships, right? Able to hit them really, really hard. Musashi is mostly going to be engaging other battleships, right? You're going to be abusing that overmatch to maximum potential. Total credits earned with a premium count, 270k again. Credit earning is the flaw with the ship, in my opinion, at least the major one. Anyways, folks, that brings us to the end of the video. Don't forget to enter for the CCT crate giveaway thing with Bob in the comment section. Aside from all that, take care, have yourselves a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again soon.